What is going on, Sports Wars? This is Ryan with RK Outpost and geeksandgamers.com, and I have with me Uche Waneri, the observant lineman, former Jacksonville Jaguar, which is pretty relevant today. Uche, how you doing?
Yeah. Doing good. What's going on, Sports Wars? Got some breaking news here, huh?
Yeah, so some breaking news, that's for sure. And we'll let these notifications get out there in just a second. But, I mean, Tom Coughlin, man.
Done deal. You know, it's crazy because as somebody who played their entire career in Jacksonville, I mean, it has kind of been that it's been that kind of atmosphere there for the longest, as far as things just kind of being run a little bit differently, things not necessarily working to the benefit of the players enough so that you can attract the right kind of free agents to come to Jacksonville. And this was just probably the biggest black eye for the organization over its 25 years in that regard, because it is that situation with Tom Coughlin has made it infinitely more difficult to attract big names to Jacksonville. And, you know, I think this was a logical step. It was absolutely necessary in order to try and salvage what could be salvaged in terms of Shad Khan trying to rebuild this team back into a winner. And, you know, it just goes to show that style of management, that old school guard of football management just is not compatible with the modern era of football that we're in today. It just doesn't work. And now we know that Jalen Ramsey was right. Jalen Ramsey had legitimate reasons as to why he wanted out of Jacksonville, and he kept it to himself for the most part. But the one thing that he brought to light to the public was that it was disrespect from the people in the front office. And without naming names, he was talking about Tom Coughlin, because, you know, Tom Coughlin was kind of behind the scenes. People were talking about it was Tom Coughlin who kind of instigated a bit of a rift between Jalen and the Jaguars after that situation in Houston earlier this season. So, you know, it's unfortunate for Tom Coughlin, but at the same time, I think this should be this is something of a humbling experience based on what we know now. With the situation from Jalen Ramsey and, you know, Dante Fowler. I mean, this guy was fined over $700,000 for doing exactly what he is allowed to do as a player. And when you break those collective bargaining agreement rules, there has to be a severe price to pay. And he had to pay for that with his job today.
There you go. Yeah, and thank you guys for you that just coming in. Breaking news: Tom Coughlin has been fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars. This follows some reports from the NFLPA about they basically described it as a toxic environment. And I have an article pulled up that I kind of like to just go through a little bit. We can get the specifics there. But if you're just joining us, can you smash the like button, share this stream out there,
like button.
Let everybody know that we're here and get more people in. And yeah, Tom Coughlin, an old school guy who evidently has been running in an old school way. Yeah. So let me share this. You know, I hadn't heard about this until I heard he got fired. And obviously, Uche, you're very well connected down in Jacksonville, so I'm sure you had an idea this was coming. But this is from BigCatCountry.com.
Big Cat Country. I'm connected with that guy out there. I know that guy who runs Big Cat Country. Done articles with him in the past. He's legit.
There you go. And so Jags should fire Tom Coughlin today. This was from a couple days ago. It's just an editorial, just opinion piece, saying that Shad Khan should ask for Tom Coughlin's resignation or outright fire him. After the details from the NFLPA that was released late afternoon, it's clear there's been a toxic environment created from the top down with Tom Coughlin in the top role in the front office. I'm not going to rehash the details. However, it's unbelievable that the Jaguars accounted for 25% of all complaints to the NFLPA over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
25%.
That to me was even a bigger embarrassment for the franchise, being that your one team accounts for over 25%, over a quarter of the complaints and grievances filed by players on any team in the NFL. have been filed by players against the Jaguars. That is just the red herring, the red flag that should alert any owner that something's just not being done right, and there has to be a change.
Yeah, and then exactly what you were talking about. There's one case that now LA Rams defender Dante Fowler, who was fined 25 times for around almost $750,000 for not using the team rehab facilities in the offseason, which is not required. There's no real excuse for the overreact there other than to try to lord over players over frivolous things. Now, I obviously you were gone before Tom Coughlin came there, right?
Yeah, I was gone before he came.
So do you know anything about Tom Coughlin from the guys that were there, that were still there after, that you stayed in touch with? Like, how did things change when he came down there?
Well, I know a couple of guys who were there for his first year back in Jacksonville, and it's not much different from what was the sentiment when he first got to New York. Guys just were being rubbed the wrong way by him. It was a rule by iron fist type mentality. Everything was on his time. The clocks were set on his clock. And, even from guys who I played with, our old center, Brad Meester, who played his entire career in Jacksonville, 14 years, that was one of the things he talked about. It was almost, kind of a folk tale about how Tom Coughlin would find guys who weren't more than 5 minutes early to meetings. If you were 4 minutes early, you got fined for being late to the meetings. And just that old Bear Bryant, mid-century, mid 20th century football coaching style of grind them into the dirt, control your players, have unquestioned loyalty from the players, unquestioned obedience from the players. That was the kind of thing that was the kind of style that Tom Coughlin, was bred from. And, quick story, he went to the Giants and he went in there with that mentality as their head coach. And Michael Strahan actually sat him down in his office and had, basically heart to heart with him, basically saying, look, you can't coach like this. If you coach like this, you're going to lose the locker room. Players do not respond to this style of coaching in the way that you want them to respond. It's going to have a negative reaction, and it's going to reflect bad on the franchise. And as a player at the time who was looking for his first Super Bowl victory in his illustrious career, Michael Strahan absolutely had to, take the lead on this, because he had the entire locker room behind him on it. And it forced Tom Coughlin's hand. It forced him into that position of becoming more of a open-minded, player-oriented coach. We all know that kind of coaching style is what works best in the NFL today, because it allows for much more flexibility with the players. And, you get much more in return from those players. You get more loyalty from those players. You get them out there playing their hardest for you each and every week. And with that mentality, being kind of opened up to Tom Coughlin, you saw instant results. You saw back-to-back Super Bowl champions or
they went with Coughlin?
Yeah, with Coughlin.
No, it wasn't back-to-back. It was several
like
years in between. It was 07 and 11 maybe.
Well, aside from, he got 2 Super Bowls out of it, right? Like they had success. They had clear-cut success. And one thing that people maybe don't pay so much attention to is that once Michael Strahan and once that kind of leadership was no longer with the Giants, they fell from grace in short order. And not too long after, Coughlin left the Giants. And I think a lot of that has to do with the style, the habits that he has as a coach. And it really just really does not, it's not compatible with this era of football. It just isn't.
Evidently, he treats everyone exactly how he looks like. He treats everyone. He just looks like an old ass bitter dude who's stuck in his ways.
Yeah.
I mean?
He treats everyone with that old. It's like an old rusty truck. Like there's nothing you can do to really make that truck go any faster or be any more efficient. It is stuck in its ancient style of architecture, and that's what Tom Coughlin was. And the thing about it that a lot of people probably also don't understand is that he had a legacy in Jacksonville after he left to go to New York. He had a somewhat decent legacy, but one of the tarnishes of that legacy in Jacksonville was the way that he left that franchise, the disarray that franchise was left in when he went to go to New York. Then they brought in, Jack Del Rio. Jack Del Rio turned the franchise around for a period of time, made a couple of playoff appearances, had playoff victories. But again, they just weren't able to maintain we weren't able to maintain that kind of success, which had a lot more to do with the general manager at that time, Gene Smith, who was a very close friend of Tom Coughlin's and who adopted Tom Coughlin's kind of style as a general manager, which led to, over the course of 4 years, that franchise being literally brick by brick torn down from a Super Bowl competitor to a near bottom of the barrel franchise. And, I was there for all of that, from the highs and the lows. So I can speak with some level of true relatability to what is going on right now, because I witnessed it happen when I was in Jacksonville. And there are a lot of players, who were there as well, such as Maurice Jones-Drew, such as David Garrard. These were guys who were in the prime of their careers. We were kind of wasting away at a franchise that was being, very much broken down by people of the same mentality as Tom Coughlin. So, it's not, to me, Shad Khan absolutely is making the right move with this. I think that you have to make a decision instantly when you find out about the situation with the NFLPA and how the NFLPA went as far as to slap the franchise in the face by warning players to consider to think twice before you sign with the Jaguars. That's a damning statement to make about a professional football franchise. So I really think that this was the only course of action that Shad Khan had. And of course, Shad Khan, I've known him, I've met him. I played for him for a year. He is a heck of an owner. Like, the guy is that new age style of businessman, new age style of owner who is all about sparing no expense and doing anything that he needs to do from a financial standpoint to put the franchise in the best position possible. And, he knows when it's time to cut your losses and make a move. And that's what he's doing here.
All right. So if you guys are just joining us, Tom Coughlin, who is vice president of football operations for the Jacksonville Jaguars for the past several years, has been fired. It comes after reports from the NFLPA and after an investigation that shows that there's basically a toxic environment. That's their words, not mine. In that front office, over 25% of complaints to the NFLPA have been about Jacksonville over the past couple of years, mostly getting fined for things that aren't actually finable in the CBA. You can see here, there's a large gap between a disciplinary and comical overreach. What the Jaguars have done under the guide of Tom Coughlin since he took over was done under the knowledge they were breaking rules and imposing fines they didn't have the authority to under the CBA. And that has been effect since Coughlin was the head coach of the Giants. It's clear this is purposeful, and now the franchise has a huge black eye because of it. And there's exactly what you said. You as players may want to consider this when you have a chance to select your next club. And I forget who it is. Is it Telvin Smith that's taken a year off right now, basically, from football?
Yeah, Telvin Smith took a year off of football. Obviously, there were some issues with him from a legal standpoint earlier, about a month or so back. We're really not sure what those issues are. They still haven't been brought to any light. Some people are now saying, I've had a couple people reach out to me from Jacksonville who actually say that it was kind of a false alarm about something that really didn't end up being true. I don't know the validity of that, so I won't, say exactly what it was here. But he was on Jacksonville News, doing a sports segment just a few days back. So clearly, whatever that situation is, it has been rectified. But I wouldn't doubt that there was a part of Telvin Smith that did not want to deal with some of the issues that were already rearing their heads in Jacksonville as pertaining to Tom Coughlin. So, again, like I said, you look at the situation with Jalen Ramsey, and it all makes sense now.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Doug Marrone is still there. He said he'll coach the rest of the year still. Their actual GM, Dave Caldwell, I just put it in chat because I saw people asking. He's still going to remain there, according to Shad Khan. I mean, Doug Marrone has always struck me as a kind of Tom Coughlin guy. You know what I mean? Like that's just, I feel like a slightly younger Tom Coughlin, honestly.
It's funny. I've talked to guys about that as well. That locker room actually really likes Doug Marrone. He is a player's coach by all accounts, from what I've heard. So, I watched plenty of the interviews that were going on in the time with Jalen Ramsey, with the Jalen Ramsey situation, and he didn't come off as a kind of coach who tried to rule the team with an iron fist. He came off as a guy who was very sensible. He was an offensive line coach before he was the head coach. So, generally offensive line coaches are more of those laid back types who really just want to promote a synchronized message for the team. And, he's someone who does have the backing of the locker room, as far as I know. So it's definitely, I can imagine that he was kind of under the thumb of Tom Coughlin as well, because when you're that kind of laid back guy as an old lineman, you kind of try to stay away from confrontation. And Tom Coughlin is kind of the opposite. He's that guy who is kind of wanting to enforce his will on anyone who, tries to challenge his authority within the franchise. So I think this will be something that will allow Jacksonville to kind of start with a clean slate. I'm not sure what the situation will be for Doug Marrone moving into the next season, but I can imagine if there's going to be, if he's going to get a chance, it'll be a chance to produce something next year without having the shadow of Tom Coughlin over him. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to be good for the franchise.
Yeah, and when I look at them, obviously this is going on behind the scenes for the team. On the field, they're just a mess right now. When you look at, I do think that this is kind of an opportunity, and like you said, to kind of just clean slate and start over, because your quarterback situation is fucked basically. Nick Foles, Nick Foles ain't the guy. You can have Big Dick Nick in Philly come in when you need him as a reliever, but I just don't think he's the guy, man. And then Gardner Minshew he's a guy who can make plays for you, but I don't know.
We still don't know if he's even the guy.
Yeah, I don't think he's a long-term solution. You look at, obviously, Jalen Ramsey is gone. They did get some picks in return for that. I mean, they got a good haul. Myles Jack seems like a head case to me, to be really honest.
Myles Jack has been he's been a really, really good player for the team. He does lose his cool. Yeah. He's the young guy. He loses his cool. He's gotten fined, and I believe he got a suspension as well for antics on the field. He's on the IR right now with a knee injury, but definitely a very higher level talent on that team. And it's crazy to think that when they had Telvin Smith and Myles Jack, they were that linebacking core that they were in was considered one of the best in the NFL. Telvin Smith is a top tier linebacker, and if they're able to get him back on the field next season, along with a healthy Myles Jack, there could be some, they could return to form to a certain extent on that defensive side. Right now, they've got Calais Campbell, and that is pretty much the extent of top level talent that they have on the defensive side of the ball in Jacksonville. But yeah, man, the franchise, you could see the difference the very next week after they traded Jalen Ramsey. The team just started falling off a cliff. I think they went on a 5-game skid, and they were giving up on average, I think 35, 32 points a game once he was no longer on the team. So clean slate is what they need, at least from the front office standpoint, so you can get some people in place who can kind of set a new tone for the team. But Tom Coughlin, now that he's out, definitely was the right move for Shad Khan to make, and let's hope that they can build something off of that come next season.
Man, this is great. This is from another article. It says Tom Coughlin fined Leonard Fournette $100,000 for sitting down, and then this looks exactly like Tom Coughlin. Old man Simpson.
Old man yells at cloud.
that old man Simpson is literally Tom Coughlin. Look at him. Same dude.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It said he fined Leonard Fournette $100,000 for sitting.
That's what it says. Let's see what this story is all about. Oh, I'm way too close now. Yeah, it confirms that he won a grievance against Jags to get 100 grand fine rescinded. Tom Coughlin fined Fournette for his actions sitting on the bench while inactive.
He fined him $100,000 for sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I mean, these are the type of things that that drives talent away from a franchise. Nobody wants to go play for a team where you can't even be comfortable when you're not active in playing in a particular game. And I think that kind of goes back to his rookie year or his second season. I can't remember, when he was nursing a hamstring injury. So obviously he's inactive. He's traveling with the team, but he's not going to play because of that hamstring injury. And he did get into a bit of a shouting match with some players from another team. But of course, Tom Coughlin then came out and publicly scolded Fournette, and it appears that he found a way to fine him as well.
And look at that. This is what Jalen Ramsey tweeted after that NFLPA thing came out.
Tried to tell y'all. He's vindicated. I can't, I'm a big Jalen Ramsey fan. And while I didn't approve of the style he used in kind of riding the quote unquote back injury until he could get traded, I understood that he was trying to do what was best for him. And now, in hindsight, looking at how this whole thing is played out, he was absolutely right to do that. Why would you go and even consider risking your health in a situation where you're trying to get off a team because of the people who are running it in the front office? Why would you even consider going back out on that field if you could at all help it based on the problems that you were having? I mean, of course, you want to stay off the field as much as you can. You don't want to give that guy any opportunity to have you out there to devalue you through injury or through poor play. And, he did everything that he could to make sure that didn't happen. And I totally feel like he should, he should definitely get the pass that he deserves, because he was right about what the issues were in Jacksonville.
Yeah, for sure. But I think we're going to wrap it up here soon. We just, I don't have too much time, but we wanted to kind of go live and talk about this. Uche's got all the behind the scenes info, obviously, from Jacksonville. So great to hear his perspective. Real quick before we do wrap it up, Uche, what do you think? Obviously it seems like the fans in Jacksonville are probably going to be okay with this based on polling I've seen and everything. But, just kind of 5-minute little wrap up. What do you think that they're going to do going forward? Do you think they're going to fire everybody and start over, or do you think they're going to try to salvage this roster they have?
I think that, just knowing what I know about Shad Khan, he's going to try and keep guys and keep staff in place that are beneficial. I think he's going to try to keep the best pieces that he can. And they have a young roster. You also have to remember that they got a pretty young roster, a lot of talent that they drafted in. So I don't think that they're necessarily going to try to clean slate from that respect. I do think that they're going to try to revamp that operations position, maybe even the general manager position. But Shad Khan is a patient guy, but he is not a stupid guy. He is not going to continue to let people or let management stay in place that is not doing what's best for the franchise and is not helping the franchise move forward in its quest to try and reattain that winning spirit. And, I spoke to a lot of Jags fans yesterday on my Facebook because, obviously a lot of people on my Facebook are Jacksonville fans and, people who've been going to every game. And I'm part of a lot of their groups on Facebook. And, I had conversations with a lot of them last night. Many of them definitely were of the mindset of firing Tom Coughlin. A lot of people didn't like it when he came back. So, one thing to note is that when he left the first time, the Jaguars had a salary cap of, less than 5% of what you would typically have on a roster to be able to sign free agents. Going into next year's free agency, the Jaguars have $1.5 million in cap space. Think about that. That is what he's $1.5 million in cap space.
Oh, get a kicker, I guess.
They're going to have trouble signing their draft picks. It's crazy. This is the kind of aftermath that they're having to deal with a lot of the decisions that were made by Tom Coughlin.
Damn. Well, there you go. But there it is, guys. Tom Coughlin is gone as VP of football operations, and the Jags are going to write out the last 2 games of the season with the crew they got. But we are going to get going here. This is a short little stream. Breaking news. Want to get Uche's thoughts on it. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate all you guys showing up, and hit that like button. Make sure to drop an actual comment too below. That'll help the algorithm make this get out there more after we turn the stream off. But as always, thanks for coming out here. Make sure you smash the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell for notifications so you get breaking news, whether it's a stream or whether it's a video. But thank you, Uche, for coming here. Again, go check him out, Uche Waniri, the observant lineman. And
sir, appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man.
Sports wars.
Cancel RK Outpost. That's right, Zach. That's right. But everybody have an awesome rest of the day, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.